test and see if it actually generates appropriately. But cool.
Right at 3.
I will say, if anyone has any questions, they can put it in the chat, and we can go back and later and look at it. But we are in the process of getting this going again, so I'm checking to see if it's actually ready. It's popping up on video, so we're live officially. We are hoping to restart the podcast to the point where we are doing this more regularly, and gives us an opportunity to discuss things that are questions, things that are relevant, information that might be important to anyone who interacts with us or doesn't interact with us in the future. So lots of things to hopefully come down the pipeline, and eventually, you know, if you guys have topics that you would love to hear more about, shoot Kristen an email right now, and that's the best place to start. Or you can always comment on the videos, and maybe it's something we'll touch on in the process. But for today, I have Kristen with me, who is our new client success manager, coordinator, whatever that title is.
Yeah.
And she is going to be in charge of creating and doing these questions. So she has decided that our best route right now is to do questions for me, as it's something that most people are always curious on, and they've never had the answers, especially if they're newer into this space, to kind of take a step back and be like, hey, what's this growth and process look like? So, Kristen,
Yeah.
you should take it.
Yeah, awesome. So when you talked about bringing the podcast back, I was excited about that and was kind of thinking, okay, how should we get this started? And we have so many new members right now, which is awesome. And I thought, you know, this is a great time to dive into a little bit about you, how this place started, really focusing on gym and nutrition and things like that. And so I got a lot of great questions from the members, put it out to them. And even for some of us that have been here for years and years and years, you're not really an open book.
No.
And so, which is fine, you're here to coach us, that is your job.
Yep.
So I thought this is a good opportunity to ask you some questions that maybe we wouldn't otherwise. So.
I only get 1 hour a day. You guys only get so many questions, so.
Well, we get you here for at least an hour, right? Okay. So before we get going, I just want to say, in all of my experience of CrossFit, what we have here at Classified is something very special. And I know it takes a community and whatnot, but it really starts from the top. And so, you know, from myself and from so many members here, we really want to thank you. Thanks, Stevie. I know she's a big supporter of yours, and she's kind of in the trenches with you. I know you've made this your career.
Yep.
This is not a hobby. And you're continually learning to give us the best coaching, and we see that, acknowledge that, and are very grateful. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get going on some questions.
Okay.
All about Ryan, here we go. Okay, so start off, what about just a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, the family, your family growing up, and, you know, the family you have now.
Yeah, so as guarded as I am, this will be as simple as it can be. So I'm originally from here, Yuba City, California. My family's been here since 1959, when my grandfather moved up here to open a car dealership. And since then, this is just where the family's grown and existed. So I've been a long time person that's lived in this area. I went off to school for 4 years at UC Santa Barbara, but came back and have continued to live in this community basically all those years since and before. Family-wise, I have 4 siblings who 2 of them are in the area, and 2 of them are outside of the area currently. But for the most part, we've been deeply rooted in this community for a long time, mostly in part to my grandfather, who moved here and was very heavily influenced in the Air Force and helped create the Beale Liaison Committee out at the Beale Air Force Base. So it's been it's been a growth process of trying to always make our area better, a place that people want to be, and because because it's often looked upon as something that's a little bit of a downside. Like
Yeah.
some people don't want to be in Yuba City, and for me, I hate traffic. I hate running into or having to deal with large groups of people in the sense that it just throws off my pace that I would like to be at. And this area provides all of that with keeping it nice and simple, not too many people, but I still have access to anything that I could possibly want.
True.
We can get to the mountains in 2 hours. I can get to the bay
Beach.
in
Yep.
2 hours. So there's an airport less than an hour away.
Totally.
And I can get anywhere in the world from there.
Yep.
So there are much more remote places in just the United States, let alone the world, you could live.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a pretty pristine area that allows for a lot of unique things to still be in such a comfortable place that's not overly populated.
Yeah, totally. And then your family now, Stevie and your two beautiful children.
So now I have a wife, 2 kids. We live still here in Yuba City. No plans for a third at the moment, but I have a 4-year-old son and a 15-month-old daughter. So we're just trucking along. And
busy. That's what
you
are. You're very busy. Yeah.
Lack of sleep and lots of, I would say maybe not even lots of, less time for doing the things that you love when you become a parent.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, in just a paradigm shift of priorities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, hey, where does that priority pecking order lie? And at certain points, certain decisions have to be made, and you're like, okay, this is the priority, so this is what's happening today. And other times it's like, hey, especially something I tell people a lot is we want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, because if you're not taking care of yourself at the end of the day, you can't take care of anyone else.
100%.
So it's a tough thing to balance, but once you kind of create the idea that it's acceptable, it's much more comfortable mentally and physically to accomplish and continue to do. So my wife and I see me try and spend as much time at the gym taking class as we can, and if the only thing that kind of gets in the way would be very unique situations where maybe somebody's sick or there's nobody to watch the kids. Other than that, we're here as often as we can be.
Just so you all know, Ryan just hit his 500 classes.
Yes,
we're all very proud of
it.
Ryan. Just to kind of feed off of that, having grown up here myself, you think that this is kind of such a downer place, but for everything that you said, it is a really great place to be, and you have definitely made it a little bit better with Classified Fitness. So what did you get your major in?
I have a degree in history.
Okay.
So by the way, there are 4 people watching, so if you guys have any questions, you guys can post them in the chat. I'll bring them up. But so I went off to UC Santa Barbara, got a degree in history. That's a whole different story in itself.
Was there something you wanted to do with that?
Not in particular.
Okay.
I was undeclared until my junior year, like probably a lot of college students, and then declared my major, finished up with a degree in history, and it left a lot of opportunity for growth. I will say that if I explored the idea of doing something in engineering and business, but what I really liked most about history was it's not necessarily a study of the past, but more a study of what went well and what went wrong. Mm-hmm. So analyzing data from the past, like here are the things that happened. So it's given me tools that I can utilize on a day-to-day basis in that scenario. Like, hey, if I teach a class, cool, what went wrong? How could I do that better? The same way I would have had to read about some time period in history. Like, hey, here's what went wrong, here's what went well. So it's unique in that sense of application. But
you just applied history to working out. That was awesome.
You're not going to run into anybody else doing that. But
it's very true.
It's unique about it as a major. So.
Okay. So a little bit about yourself. Let's go ahead and dive into your fitness and sports background. I know I first met you at Training Zone, so I know you go back a bit other places, but what about even growing up? I think you played soccer, right?
Yeah, so my major sport was soccer in
And
high
that was
school.
through high school?
Yeah, through high school I played all 4 years of soccer. I played 2 years of basketball. I played 1 year of golf. And back then it was fall, winter, spring sports, so they've changed up when they have the sports nowadays. But that was my main focus. And in college, um, was there an opportunity to play soccer for college? Yes. Not at Santa Barbara, and I wasn't looking to per se. But I can, without a doubt, say if I had been doing CrossFit
Yeah.
at like 12 or 13,
Yes.
there would have been a very high probability that I would have been playing at a collegiate level.
Yeah.
And it's mostly due to the fact that how much better CrossFit just makes you at everything, your recovery, your strength, your balance.
Yeah.
We never did any strength training when I was playing soccer in high school, so that was just non-existent. So the athletes that were going to play at a collegiate level were either probably doing strength training or their bodies just developed faster. So.
Right. I remembered a team in high school, Nevada Union. I'm not sure if we were in the same when you went through school, but we would just bounce off of their players. Like, it was ridiculous. And so I asked some of them, I said, what do you guys do? And that's exactly it. It wasn't CrossFit back then, but it was strength and conditioning. So, yeah.
And that's a whole different ballpark of issues that I would love to tackle one day, is trying to help the community understand what strength and conditioning should look like. It's mostly sport-specific training right now and not enough weakness training. So many athletes, everyone likes to do things they're good at. No one wants to do things they're bad at.
Right.
So when any athlete is practice, like the things you hate are the things you are not good at. Like if we run minors, you hate them because you're not good at them. If you're good at them, it's easy. It's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
So we, as a society, realistically, need to get better at trying to not necessarily make those things more fun, but make them obtainable training elements that are relevant to what we're doing. And kind of on that though, basketball practice is a great place to practice a couple liners. It's not necessarily a great thing to do when you're at a strength and conditioning gym, like, because you do that in practice. We don't need to do more of it. Like, there are some other things we could do in terms of like testing some speed and agility and coordination in that point. So, but that's the topic for another day.
And not to dive into it, but I feel like you're doing a kind of a durability program and that kind of
and
that.
I've dabbled in it before. The big thing is communication. It's communicating the possible knowledge that exists out there, because a lot of people are stuck in not archaic ways, but a one way of thinking without really expanding it. And they're only stuck in that way because they've seen success with their methods, with 1, 2, 3, a handful, whatever it happens to be. But they're successful because they're just trading the same things over and over and over again. If I just had you run 400-meter sprint repeats, eventually you're going to get faster at 400-meter sprint repeats, because that's the only thing we're doing. Like, that's the only logical outcome. But you don't actually need to get faster at them. You need to get better at recovery. So we have to train something different to get the actual true run there. So that's just a lack of thought on that process. And again, that's kind of like the analyzing of the data.
Going back to history.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. Very cool. What about some other coaching gigs? Is this the beginning, or did you coach somewhere before?
So I was coaching at Training Zone for a little bit of time before I opened the affiliate. I was doing a couple of classes there, mostly Olympic lifting, and then I had the opportunity to open my own affiliate with the potential to coach all day. So that's where we kind of dove in. 2017 is really the start, kind of officially, of coaching. That's when I got my level 1. And then from there, opened the affiliate technically 2 months later. Well, yeah, May 1st.
So since you're talking about this, it's perfect because it's my next question.
Mhm.
What made you want to start it? Because this is huge. This is a big feat.
Yeah, so I was looking for the next step, meaning that what I was doing currently, I was not as satisfied. I've shared the story a couple times before. I was in the process of joining the Air Force through a officer special forces program that existed. They never responded to my application, even though I exceeded all of the expectations required.
Okay.
So there were things like, hey, we need you, and I officially tested for these things too. So I had to do pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. You had to do a 5K run. It might have been just 3 miles under 22 minutes. And then you had to swim a mile and a half under like 30 minutes or something like that. And so I met with an individual who did these tests for these individuals, and I passed the test all through CrossFit training, by the way. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't specifically training running, I wasn't specifically training swimming, I wasn't training pull-ups or push-ups only, just all CrossFit at that point. But the only thing I did practice to get a little faster at swimming was turns in the water. So it was just technique.
Okay.
It wasn't like faster swimming. It was just, hey, I just need to work on technique. And that actually took like 6 or 7 minutes off my time just by
doing the flips on the wall.
Well, it wasn't a flip, but it was just
turning.
faster
Okay.
turns. And it's funny because when I talk to you guys in classes, I'm like, hey guys, when you go for these runs, like when you come out of your turn, come out fast.
Yeah.
And that's it, because I need to get back up to speed. Like if I take a long time to get back up to speed, it takes more energy, especially
Totally.
in water. It's like, okay, I'm fighting resistance. If it's really windy, same thing is going to apply when running. So it saves seconds every single time, and you got to do it with 1.5 miles, I think it was, or maybe it's 1,500 meters. So it was 1,500 meters. You got to do a lot of laps of the pool. That's
divided by 25.
I can't remember how long the pool was.
Okay.
So it was a 25-meter pool. You had to make 2 for 50 meters, and so that would be 30 laps. Anyways, it's a lot.
A lot.
But like,
it's a lot of turns.
Yeah, if you're making those turns and you lose 3 seconds every turn.
Yeah. Yep.
You just lost 300 seconds. If my math was there perfect, that'd be 5 minutes of time you just lost. That you can't lose that.
Yeah.
So that's where I made up a lot of time. So it wasn't necessarily getting faster at swimming. It was just getting faster at the technique of the turns. And then from there, there was no response. I had it in my head like, okay, hey, what's the backup plan if nothing happens? I was like, cool, I can go into training. I love teaching people, and I've been doing it for at least the last year. Kind of on the side, it wasn't anything full time. And then I had the opportunity to open the affiliate, and we moved that way. When I do things, I plan quickly and then implement faster.
Did you know what you were getting into?
Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
I had enough experience that I knew what to avoid and what to dive into. Are there things I would have done differently if I did it now? Not necessarily.
Okay, that's
with
good.
the opportunities I had. However, I would not recommend doing it the way I did it to most people. So I basically jumped in the deep end.
You just went for it.
Yeah, and for me, I like to adapt in that scenario. Most people don't feel as comfortable with that, so I could help you figure out a better way to tee that up.
Yeah, you did move very quickly. I met you in early 17. I remember you, Stevie, and Antonio at the training zone, and then I had to stop working out for a bit because Margot was being ridiculous. And I came back like 6 months later, and everybody was gone.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was like the vanishing. And
there was only 5 of us that left. Yeah, I mean, I know you say everybody, but it was only.
It was a core group of the class I went to.
And that's the thing. We were there very regularly, and so it.
Did you guys talk about it there? Because it was you, Stevie, Antonio, and who else?
It would have just been Joe and Steve.
Oh, okay, Steve was
I don't know
over
that Steve. Steve might have canceled before
Okay.
we even left. So and then he might have came over or was thinking about it after I told him. I was like, hey, I know you canceled, but we're gonna be doing this thing over here. So it worked out well for him at that time, pre-pandemic county stuff. But
Yeah. Right.
anyways, yeah, that was really it. It wasn't like there was 10 or 12 of us that left. It was really like 5 or 6 people, and I was like, okay. And everyone else we kind of picked up along the way as that process grew.
I think I just thought that way because I would look up to you, certain people in class.
I
And
was
so
there
when
a
I came
lot.
back, I was like, where did it, okay.
And I was there a lot. I was there more hours than it was classes were available. So I was there, if the class is at 4:30, I was there at 4, and the class ended at 6:30, I was there till 7. And so, and it was just because I was working on things, trying to be better at whatever they were. I wasn't working out multiple times. Like, I often tell people, if you want to work on multiple things, like you can 100% do that. However, for the most part, you need to be able to beat me in every single workout before we start doing that. Because right now I'm doing 1 workout a day, and that's it. And that's almost I've always done is just 1 workout a day. There's a couple of unique scenarios where I was doing more than 1, but basically 100% of the time it's 1 workout a day. And I did skill stuff outside of that. So like double unders. I had to practice for 8 weeks straight to get double unders. Like 5 minutes a day. I'm just gonna grab a rope. I'm gonna practice double unders. It took me 8 weeks to be able to get 20 double unders in a row. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I got it, and kind of build on top of there. So most people are generally trying to be in and out, and if you don't have the time to dedicate to it, then just 1 class a day is all you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't need extra. It's the stuff I was implementing was not hard on the body, is the key. Like, you can't implement more things that are just going to be hard on the body just to be hard on the body. You have to implement things that are going to be.
You said this to me when I first started, and you said my programming is set that you can come 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And that is, so you just need 1 workout a day, and we're not here to kill you. We're here to get you to move, and so that you can come 5 to 6 days a week. Yeah.
Because if we can't attend 6 days a week because of injuries or soreness, you don't need extra period either, right? Like, we're giving yourself 23 hours of rest since the last class, and if you haven't recovered by that time, you don't need to add more to your day too.
Right.
So, and I think that's another misconception that's out there. It's like, my workout has to leave me sore. Like, no, you just come in and move better each time. I try, and especially over the last couple of years, it's exciting for the gym members to cheer on somebody who's doing a lift or movement. You're never going to hear me cheering louder for that person that's trying to hit a new PR more than I'm going to cheer for the person who's moving better that day.
Yeah.
That person I'm always going to cheer on more. And it's okay that the community gets rallied behind the person hitting the heaviest lift or something that's new for them.
Yeah.
But usually what that means is something is out of position, and I'm not saying it's always bad. It's just a question of like, hey, we could have been in a better position, and that lift actually would have been a little bit easier, and you wouldn't have needed everybody cheering for you. And if we can take a step back and actually get that dialed in, that's great. But the people that are moving better every single day, those are the ones that I'm cheering the loudest for.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So we talked a little bit about what made you want to start your own, and you kind of dove right in, and I feel like you took on the responsibility of coach kind of the same way, and you really gave it your everything and dove into the deep end there. What level certified are you right now, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so CrossFit has 4 credentials. So they have the level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. The level 1 and level 2 are certificates. So what that means is the course has gone through whatever governing body that's out there, I don't remember the exact name, to give it a certificate. Like, hey, you have a level 1 certificate. What that means is you can open a CrossFit affiliate, and we recognize that you have taken our assessment and acknowledge you have a baseline understanding of CrossFit. Then they have the level 2 certificate. It's a opportunity to grow and develop as a coach. From there, they have the level 3 certification. So the difference between the certification and the certificate is a big deal. I don't know the exact distinction, but for governing boards across the world, there's a distinct difference.
Well, you're certified at that point.
Correct, yes. So I'm now a certified CrossFit trainer.
Yeah.
The level 4 is a certified CrossFit coach. So those are the distinctions.
Interesting.
There.
Okay.
So anyone who says, hey, I'm a level 1 coach, is actually breaking their licensing agreement. Same thing with level 2 or level 3.
Or trainer.
Trainer. So, and you'll never hear me say that. I always say trainer. And the when you get to level 4 is when you can officially use the word coach, because
that's crazy.
That's the credential.
Yeah.
Now, I am a coach here at Classified Fitness, so there's a distinction in that. But I'm not calling myself a level 1 coach. Technically I'm a level 3 trainer, but I'm not calling myself a level 3 coach. I'm a level 3 trainer and certified. And the next step would be hopefully getting to level 4. That is being a substantial challenge for everyone who signed up for it right now. But
as it's kind of changing, you said, right?
Yeah, it's they just released the program, and it's something that CrossFit recognizes they have not done a very good job of trying to explain what a high-level coach should look like. So they're trying to help kind of guide that process throughout as well. So they're very recently starting to put out information on, like, hey, this is what it should look like. And that is the big difference you're going to see between any CrossFit affiliate, is how I wouldn't even say head coach, but owner or coach has interpreted what CrossFit is supposed to be. So you're going to have many, it's kind of like if we take Christianity as a whole, and then how many subsets of Christianity exist at each church.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah, right.
CrossFit's the same way. We're all reading out of the same book. We all have different views of like what it actually means. And some of us are pretty similar.
Yeah.
Some of us are on far deep ends, but and CrossFit is trying to reel everyone back in. Right. Like, hey guys, this is what it's supposed to be. So it would be very similar to Jesus showing up. Be like, hey guys, this is actually they're the ones doing it the best.
Yeah.
So
they're figuring that out, bringing everyone in.
Yeah, that's their goal.
So, and for you guys that don't know, to get to level 3, why I said Ryan is really he dove into the deep end, is it's not an easy thing to do. It's study courses, it's study groups, and it's from what I understand, it's an extensive test.
It's an extensive test. So there are, the last numbers I had, it's grown since then. There were 80,000 level 1 trainers. There were 20,000 level 2 trainers. When I passed my level 3, there were only 1,500.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's
like a 3 to 5% people, or like 3%
less
have
than 1%. Less than 1%.
I'm way off.
Yeah.
It's less. It's pretty impressive. You really, it just kind of shows your dedication to this gym and to your members to be like the best coach that you can for us.
Yeah, and the actual level 3, like obtaining it, means nothing, because I've talked about this in many coach development groups with many others. Like, okay, at what point are you a level 3 trainer? And technically the answer is when you pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
But the journey to passing the test is how you actually become a level 3 trainer.
The experience of it.
The more experience you have, the more knowledge you obtain, that's when you get to the point of like, I've done this. The actual test date is irrelevant because you obtain the information at some point. The question is, when were you able to explain it and utilize it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to jump down a couple questions because I think this flows a little bit better. So as for coaching,
mm-hmm.
I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2019ish, you kind of switched from the classic CrossFit classes. For those of you that are new, used to start with a strength portion, and that would go 10 to 15 minutes, and you would do 5x3 bench or front or back squat. It'd be a dedicated strength portion to the class, and then the remainder of the workout was to get that WOD done. And what ended up happening is, as a coach, you were more so like herding cats. You didn't have a lot of time to actually coach. And I feel like it's CrossFit itself kind of is trying to change that to incorporating strength into the workout to allow for more coaching. And I've noticed that I haven't lost any strength since you've implemented that. So on the coaching stance, what's the benefit to that, and what have you seen in your members do switching over?
Yeah, so the easy answer to what that transition was is I took my level 2.
Okay.
And CrossFit was like, hey guys, this is how it's supposed to go.
Okay.
At which point I had never been told differently. No one had said anything.
That's just what happened. Yeah.
I was engrossed in CrossFit prior to that. It wasn't like I was living under a rock.
Right. No, exactly.
So I had never interacted with a level 2 trainer before I got mine. So
where do you think that started from? Did that start from CrossFit and it kind of switched?
The short answer is I can't remember who it was, wrote a article in maybe 2008, 2009 about strength training, why it was important. And if you look at the article, it talks about, and this is on part of the level 3 study material, it talks about why it's important to do strength training. And it kind of goes into like, hey, we could do this every single day. And everyone took that idea as like, oh, we should do this every single day.
Got it.
As opposed to like we could versus we should. And the goal was not to do it every single day. It was like, hey, this is a theory that is out there that exists. And then on top of that, as the games grew, it became relevant that you needed to do more and not just better. So they started doing more, and if they were doing more, it meant everyone else had to start doing more because we all wanted to be the top tier echelon, even though that's not realistic, right? It's like
not at all.
Watching NFL football on Sundays and like I'm as fast as they are out on the field. Like I'm just gonna go train with them when they're doing
okay, that makes sense.
The distinction between the professional athlete and the average day CrossFitter happened during that period, and everyone wanted to be the professional athlete because they were so close.
Sure.
It was very obtainable.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, once that separation's been created, which it exists now, it's still a dying habit of like, hey, and that's where CrossFit's trying to do a better job of, hey, here's what we're supposed to be doing. Here's what we're looking for. And here's the prescription of what it is. Now, with that being said, we still have workouts where we do a strength plus metcon sometimes. I just don't tell you. Right? There are days like, hey guys, we're gonna overload this, and you do your sets.
Yeah. Okay.
And but it's a mindset shift of opportunity to coach. So
absolutely, yeah.
When I recognize the problem with the other strength and metcon scenario prior to opening the affiliate, that the strength never lined up with the metcon. So if I taught one movement and then we had to teach 3 more movements, it never lined up. So if you go back and look at all the workouts I programmed, they were all the strength lined up with whatever we were doing. So if we were doing squats as a strength, we were also going to do it in the metcon. So I wouldn't have to teach it again. It's like, great, hey, we got that.
Well, the problem is with a lot of gyms, they don't have time to teach it. So there's no coaching, essentially.
And that's the whole problem is more is not better. Better is better.
Better is better, yeah.
So we have to make strides to acknowledge how to be better at one thing. And I can't be better at one thing if I just keep doing something else entirely. So by removing I wouldn't even call it mandatory, just a part of class, I can now put in anything I want to. It can be, it can be skill stuff, it can be endurance stuff, it can be weakness things, right? We can implement whatever we want to by not having to do this abstract idea that's not really helping.
It gives you more freedom and creativity then, too. Yeah.
And what I'd say to that is, if most people are afraid of failing, so if they have something that's easy and works, they're going to continue doing it. Whereas for me, if I have something I'm like, that didn't work at all, how can we make changes to it so that it does work? And that'll happen not often, but occasionally at the 5:15 a.m. class. It's regularly known as a test class.
Guinea pigs.
And it's like, hey, today's example is a good one. I wrote down a stimulus time, and they were 2 to 3 minutes faster than it. I was like, cool, I just dropped the stimulus time. That's how easy it is. I got 2 extra minutes to teach you guys as we progress through classes. So little things like that. That's a small example, but other times it's a question of like, ooh, that didn't flow logistically. How can we set up the room so it flows a little bit better, so there's less questions and issues?
Yeah. No, it worked out great today. The flow was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, one more on the coaching side, I think. Well, maybe a couple more, but can you touch on stimulus and the importance of that?
The stimulus is the most important part of the workout. If we're not hitting the stimulus, it means that we're not, psychologically connected to the workout, in the sense that we're not creating the adaptations necessary to be able to increase fitness. Now, that is kind of the reason why we have a Just Move option, is to allow for athletes who are not mental clarity state to be able to go, or physical clarity. It's like, I need both physical and mental clarity to hit the stimulus. So when we say things like, I want unbroken pull-ups, and you're like, well, I can do 2 sets of 5, like, well, you didn't hear me.
Yeah.
I said unbroken.
Yeah.
So you either didn't physically want to push yourself that hard, or mentally didn't want to push yourself that hard. That is the disconnect. Now, being able to apply the ability to look at the clock and think is kind of that next step for an athlete. But we also want to be able to give the athletes the option to choose, like, hey, is it smarter for you to do this unbroken, if you can, or is it smarter for you to break it up into 2 sets? That's a fair question as an athlete. Now, if that comes up, it's a question of, are you trying to do this to get fitter, or are you trying to do this to work on a skill? Right. If the answer is you want to get fitter, we know the only way to increase fitness is through intensity. There is no intensity in resting. If you're doing it to increase a skill, because you want to get better at it, great, I love it. As long as you accept that, and we might have to give something else though. Double unders are a really good example. It's a very difficult skill for people to do and practice and work on. So sometimes it might be, hey, we're going to do 30 seconds of jump rope practice. You're just going to do as much as you can. And that's it. That's the extent of it. That way we can stick with the stimulus. It doesn't matter how hard you worked, or how many you got, you did your best, and then we got to move on to kind of keep the flow going through this workout. So that is why every single brief we give you a goal. Like, here's the goal. Like, this is what we're going for. And it's absent an actual time limit. It's very common at other affiliates to use the word time cap. We don't use time caps here because I'm not capping your time. Your fitness is going to cap you, especially if you're pressing to the limits that we're looking for in a particular stimulus. Now, certain days are lower intensity. Some of them are really high intensity. It just depends on that particular workout. But that's what I'm here for, is to make sure that programming aligns with whatever we're trying to achieve. And that's also, like I said, if we don't have that physical and mental clarity, great, we can do skill stuff. We can do Just Move. Lots of options. It's just a question of, are we ready to push for the actual stimulus that we want to achieve?
It's interesting you bring in psychological, because people just think of fitness as physiological, but really your mind has to be there as well.
So CrossFit or intensity is relative to your physiological and psychological tolerances. So there are 10 general skills of fitness. They are cardiovascular endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility. These are all organic and can be trained physically. Power and speed, come back to those in a second. Then you have balance, coordination, accuracy, and agility. Those last four are all neurological. They're all things that have to be done through training. Now, the two in the middle are both power and speed. I have to have a neurological adaptation and a physiological adaptation to be able to get it. So all those 10 skills, if we're weak in any of them, it prevents us from being stronger in all of them.
Yeah.
So if we have a weakness in coordination, great, so we need to get better at doing coordination. And that can be as simple as, for these lunges I'm doing today, I'm going to find a line in the gym and I'm going to make sure every single one of them, my legs stay on one side or the other.
But you kind of have to think about it, right?
Right. So
it's not just like...
And so we're no longer going fast, but we're working on coordination. That's fine. Good. I accept that. But now this athlete is working on moving better, not faster, which is their step where they need to be for that particular workout. They might be a really good rower, right? So if the workout was rowing and bench press, call it, they can do that really well. But if the workout is rowing and deadlifts, and they're not very good at either one, it's like, we got to slow down, reduce the reps, reduce the weight, so you can focus on improving these things.
Yeah.
And that way, it's, make those improvements there.
Cool, awesome. Okay, jumping kind of away from coaching. What's the meaning behind our name, Classified Fitness?
Classified Fitness. So I first drew out the logo, thought it was cool, and there we are.
And the logo, you mean this, right?
Yeah, that one.
And
that's a hand drawn. I mean, that one I created.
Yeah,
the
original.
Trial on Photoshop or whatever. So.
And so, but Classified just kind of came to you?
Yeah, it was just so when you open an affiliate, you have to submit, I think, 2 or 3 names because you don't know if any of them are going to get accepted or not. So I was like, great, we're going to send in Classified. I actually sent in CrossFit Classified. They said no on that, but they said we could use Classified CrossFit. I was like, perfect, that works for me.
Interesting.
Wow,
okay.
That was the first one I drew. I got it back, and everything I had read said that most things I'd get turned away on. Like, hey, it's a high probability your name's going to get turned away.
Interesting.
So
big say on that. I didn't realize.
You once they give it to you, you're like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. It's very often or not, like, it makes or breaks a lot of like gym names that are out there. Just that process, you don't know whether you're going to get a yes or no. You know if you're going to get a no when the name already exists in the world.
Sure.
So if you could quickly Google some stuff. There were some names I Googled, and I was like, well, I guess I'm not getting that one in the process, because I thought they were like, okay, this is kind of unique and cool. But then it came down to, okay, let me create something so unique that no one else has claimed, which I did, and I had a logo for it. I was like, cool, this could be the logo. So
perfect.
Conceptualized and good. Signed off, and that's where we are.
Okay. There we have it.
I will also say I didn't want anything intimidating.
Okay.
Like, there might be an affiliate out there that's like diehard CrossFit.
Yeah, right.
Not a good CrossFit name, as many people are learning nowadays. Like, there are certain name choices that you should have avoided, but it's an unfortunate circumstance, and some people are learning that the hard way.
That's hilarious. All right, here's some fun questions for you. So I thought these were kind of fun. Who's your favorite CrossFit athlete and why? Do you have one?
I don't know that I currently have one. I'm trying to think back. I've followed the games as a spectator and just a form of entertainment.
So last year you went.
Yeah, last year I went.
Was there someone that you're like, oh, I can't wait until they get on the floor?
Not particular. Really. And like I've seen all these athletes, followed them for the most part. I use it as more of just a chance to relax and not really think about it. This is just like, all right, learn something, like how did they attack this particular workout. If I go back a couple of years, the one person I was always kind of excited to see excel would have been someone like Brent Fikowski. because he was very methodical in his approach to workouts. So it was very, you could tell when he turned it on and turned it off. And that's something I try and do with my own training is recognize, okay, where's the sticking point in this workout? Do I need to conserve energy for this, or do I need to just go hard and then I'll just kind of make it through it, whatever it happens to be. So just from the critical thinking point, that's probably the favorite I've had in the last couple of years.
He's always been so close.
I know.
It's
not that I like, oh, super excited if he got first. I would say I'm more disconnected from sports than a lot of people, in the sense that when I watch most sports, I'd rather just be out there doing them as opposed to just watching them.
Absolutely. I'm the same way.
So,
what's your favorite workout and why, or favorite movement?
Oof. Favorite workout? I don't know. I think Filthy 50 is probably my favorite workout. If I had to do one workout forever, it would probably just be Filthy 50. And the reason I like it is because there's so many different movements.
Yeah, it's like a chipper. It's a true chipper.
So that's a like that would probably be my go-to. And then Fight Gone Bad would also be really good. I would be okay with doing either of those every single day.
I feel like Monday's workout was kind of a Fight Gone Bad-ish.
Very, very similar to that. But favorite movement? Probably, I want to say power cleans. Probably my favorite movement. And I think it's just the most fun to do quickly. And I would say single heavy power cleans would be my favorite movement. So, because there's a lot of things you can do, like fast hang power cleans, and those are okay, but I would say a single heavy power clean is my favorite movement to do.
They are fun. I like power cleans. All right, so right before we jump into nutrition, and when we don't have much time, but outside or inside CrossFit's 100 words of fitness, like what would be the most important thing that you would want a member to hold on to? Or
eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar.
Well, perfect. That leads us right into nutrition. That was perfect.
That's it. That's
okay.
So the next line is train 5 or 6 days a week. That's the next part of this, and then it's major lifts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's it. Those first 2 sentences.
Eat right and be consistent.
Yeah, and that's it.
That's the magic.
That's all it takes. It's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you will be able to do things you never thought possible.
100%. Mm-hmm.
So, and I can't tell you what they would be because I don't know what you can do, but you would be able to do more than whatever you're currently doing.
What's your background in nutrition, and what made you want to?
Yeah, so for the most part, it's all CrossFit based.
Okay.
Meaning, so I have a Nutrition 1 cert with CrossFit. I also have, I don't know that they've created Nutrition 2. I think they just call it Nutrition 1 just in case they create a Nutrition 2.
And they might, yeah.
The level 1 and level 2 also have their own nutrition components to it.
Yeah, right.
And the level 3 also has its own nutrition components to it. So I've studied a spectrum of CrossFit options, I guess, and they have a lot of options. And the reason they have a lot of options is because CrossFit's sole purpose is to do the things that are going to get you the fittest results. So if for whatever reason we decided roller skating got you fitter than getting on the Echo bike, we would be outside roller skating.
Come on, Ryan,
it probably doesn't.
Bring it in.
And Dorito would be super happy, but it.
Oh my God.
That's the true sense of it. So with nutrition, it has to be whatever is going to help you get fittest. Whether it's counting macros, doing the zone diet, so either way you're measuring your food, which is really important. If we're not looking at how much food we're eating in terms of like weight or grams in any sense, we can't push the margins of our experience.
Yeah.
So we have to know how much in order to quantify what to do next. It's the same thing with lifting, right? I'm not going to lift 95 pounds for a strict press if I've only ever done 65 pounds. But the only reason I know I've done 65 pounds is because I recorded it or I remember doing it. Because I looked at it, I had the actual measurement. It's weight, like the plates are labeled, so I can do the math and add it up. If they were not labeled and I just picked up weight and lifted it above my head, I would have no representation to what I've done before.
Yeah.
I would only know, hey, I've lifted that, but I don't know how much it weighs. It's just unmarked.
Yeah.
And that's how most people eat food. They consume food that is not unmarked, but they just don't know how much they're consuming or what they're consuming. So that's preventing them from making growth in the right direction.
And so do you think, I know a lot of people, even I myself was years ago, kind of intimidated on learning about macros, but really when it comes down to it, it's very important. And maybe not necessarily tracking it gram for, whatever, the weight or whatnot, but of those three, what would you think would be the most important to make sure you're getting in every day?
Protein.
Okay.
99% of people are
severely deficient.
Yeah, deficient in protein. Like basically every single person you come across.
Yeah.
So, and that's where part of the diet slash common language as we grown up is the issue. It's become very, hey, red meat's bad for you, or eat your vegetables first.
Yeah.
And it's prevented us from eating the protein that we need. That is part of the issue that we're having, is like, hey, we actually need to be eating, if you're active, like 2 palm sizes per meal.
Yeah.
Like, and again, this is outside of supplementation, which I would love to avoid for the most part. But almost every single person I've interacted with has at least 100 pounds of lean body mass, meaning they should be eating 100 grams of protein every single day. For representation, that's about 3 chicken breasts a day. And if I asked people to eat 3 chicken breasts a day, they'd be like, no, I'm full. I'm like, good. Now we're not eating shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
and you are full.
Yeah.
It really does help.
Which is that's where we should be.
Yeah.
Now there are some caveats to that, in the sense that if you have 190 grams of lean body mass and you're currently eating 100, you don't want to jump to 190. But being able to stair step that process so the body gets used to how much protein you're intaking is really important. But outside of counting macros, which is fine that you don't like it, like, just eat more protein than you're probably currently eating, and eat less processed carbs, whatever they happen to be, whether it's potato chips, French fries, pasta. If you can eat a little bit more protein and less processed carbs, we're going to see a substantial change in the way you're doing it without even having to count. So.
Yeah, very, very true. Can members use their skill development sessions to talk to you about nutrition? Okay.
They can.
So,
I think it says it on there. It says skill development session or nutrition discussion, because that was something that I felt was relevant to a certain group of people. Is like, hey, if you want to come down and just sit and talk about nutrition, like, great, let's sit down and talk about it, because there are just subtle changes we can make that will go a long ways, because most people don't need big changes. They just need a little change every so often to get the ultimate change that we're looking for.
For long-term success, right? You never want to do...
Like, if we take here's a perfect example, The Biggest Loser. I think the statistic came out, something like 75 or 80% of those participants regain the weight after like a year. And it's because they're just throwing them in the deep end of the pool without teaching them how to walk down the steps. And then, hey, we're going to walk in the water. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to teach you how to doggy paddle. Now we're going to do some freestyling. They just throw them into the pool and expecting them to hold their breath for 2 minutes. And it doesn't work. Right? People pass out. They panic. Everything goes wrong. And that's what's happening. Is if you give people too much, they will panic, they will lose control, they will get depressed, and it will have it will force them to have an unhealthy relationship with what the change we're trying to make.
Yes, agreed there. I was kind of thinking about that kind of goes into the next, just the importance of nutrition or exercise. Obviously, is going to help with weight loss and muscle gain, but it really comes down to what you're putting in your mouth.
Yeah.
And so, people think, oh, I'm going to start CrossFit so I can lose weight. And that's great, and you might, but you still really have to be cognizant of what you're eating.
Yep. And as much as like, oh yeah, I like to, work out, have a drink. I'm like, okay, but we can't do that every day, every weekend. It's gotta be something that we have to give our body the opportunity to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Because like if we celebrate a birthday every weekend, it's like, oh, I have 4 kids born over the next, 8 weeks. Well, your body's going to be in a deficit that entire time. Like
totally.
It doesn't matter if you eat perfectly throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Like we have to give our body to get ahead of it, and then.
I like that you brought that up, because I think a lot of people have the mentality of, well, I eat well during the week, but then I kind of do whatever I want on the weekend. Well, you're not giving your body a chance to get ahead.
Yeah.
Even in those 2 days, and even if you don't eat that bad, it's like you're not giving your body the chance to go onto the wellness side of the spectrum.
And it takes weeks for the body to get alcohol out of the system in the sense of the toxins, not like the actual your blood alcohol content. Like getting the rest of the toxins out of the system takes weeks.
Yeah.
So every single week we
Friday
do,
night or
we do the
whatever.
exact same thing. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's just a cascading event. Even if it's just consistent, right? So the line just stays consistent. It'll never go up or down. But what happens is eventually you can't get the toxins out, and then you're like, oh, I've only had 1 drink this week on my normal Friday nights. I'm going to do Saturday night too, and then it spikes a little bit. It never comes back down because it just stays consistent.
And then you're up higher.
It always just spikes. So we have to be consistent at getting it to drop down before we even think about getting it to spike up. Which is why I tell people, like, eat the way I want you to until you reach where you're supposed to be. Then you can do what you want. Because it's a lot easier to come back down at that point than it is
once you've been there.
Go back up. And it's a lot faster process than most people want to think about. But in 2-3 years' time, you can make more changes than you did over the 20 years that you put it on. So, if I could lock people in a room and be like, cool, you don't get alcohol for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that experiment, you're like, I guarantee those people would have maybe 1 drink a month, and they would hate themselves every single time they did it because of how good they felt with that. And that's not just
100%.
alcohol. That would be like sugar, anything, right?
Anything.
So it's amazing how that body would change in that process.
And I feel like one of your programs or membership plans is the Platinum Results Guaranteed. Because if these members do what you say, this will happen.
Yeah.
But you have to do what you're told.
And it's simple. It's not like, I'm not trying to make it complicated.
Yeah.
Eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Train 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah. And those are results guaranteed.
Yeah.
And
that's what it comes down to. And I didn't say push intensity 5 or 6 days a week.
Right, just
I think it's an important note, because I will help decide, or the coaches will help you decide whether it's an appropriate day to just do some skill stuff, or if it's time to push some intensity depending on your goals. Right? Like just showing up, doing the Just Move might be the fantastic option.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, we will see results through intensity. However, it's all relative to people's training age is really the biggest way of looking at it. So, if you've never trained before and you join at 50 years old, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get to a reasonable training age than it is for somebody who's 20 coming out of high school where they're supposed to be doing PE more regularly. It's like the gap in years of physical exercise is a lot less. So being able to, that's really the big difference between age. It's like the difference in time between actual movement in life, whether it's PE or recess that they have as kids, versus where they progress to and they join.
Yeah.
So
All right, well, let's end on a fun question for you,
Okay.
Ryan, and I'm sure everyone's dying to know. Did you ever have a struggle with something in particular, like with nutrition, and how did you kick that habit? Like sugar, whatever.
So not since I started CrossFit. I used to drink 1, 2 sodas a day, but it
Okay.
was never a body weight issue or concern. Uh, when I look back, I'm like, yikes, that was just a terrible
Yes,
habit,
yeah.
right? That was not good at all. I personally struggled to set aside time to increase the weight that I'm trying to do. And that's mostly a goal I've had since I opened the affiliate, to try and get to a higher body weight. But most of that is me just setting time aside to eat breakfast, throw it in my meal because I only eat 2 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
So if I eat a third meal a day, it would substantially increase my ability to do that. I have a plan of when I'm going to try and do that next, but I have to, you'll have to stay tuned for when that actually happens.
Okay.
And I mean, that would be a process I would love to talk about because I think there's a lot of people that are, under the idea that CrossFit doesn't help you gain weight or gain strength and mass, when in actuality that's not entirely true. Like there are multitudes of people who have gotten stronger and more muscle mass by doing CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a question of what we're eating to make that happen.
Makes sense.
Shocker. It comes back to what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's all the questions we have for you. Was there anything else you wanted to?
No, I think that's a
Right on.
good
Okay.
wrap for today.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming, guys.
Yep. See you at the gym.